New Super Mario Bros. Wii. This iconic 2D platformer has been loved and is still loved by many. To this day, the speedrunning community remains very active, with competitive, optimized, and impressive top runs. And with a huge increase in blindfolded gaming over the past years and my own interest and experience with blindfolded gaming, I was curious, with a game as popular as NSMBW, surely it has already been beaten while blindfolded. What's up YouTube, I'm Wes, and in this video I will be covering how I achieved the world's first blindfolded speedrun of NSMBW. I will start with a brief introduction to blindfolded gaming, including how it works and what techniques are used, then some background on NSMBW and where the project was when I got involved, and lastly a walkthrough of the entire blindfolded any % route and what strategies were used. This is my first time making this style of video and I'm really excited to share this project with you all. So please be sure to leave feedback as well as let me know what you found most interesting about blindfolded NSMBW in the comment section down below. And if you don't want to miss out on more video game challenges, be sure to subscribe, hit that notification bell, and consider checking out my speedrunning channel and Twitch streams. With that being said, let's get right into it. So blindfolded gaming. How does it work? There is a big misconception that blindfolded gaming requires a lot of visual speedrunning experience and muscle memory from that. This is absolutely not true. Blindfolded takes a completely different approach that it's usually not even worth comparing the two. It's important to understand that the majority of blindfolded gaming is actually prep work. I like to describe it as solving a puzzle. First you have to come up with a solution for beating a level or segment blindfolded, and then you have to memorize and practice the solution in order to perform it. One does not have to be a speedrunner to learn how to do a blindfolded speedrun. Generally, the rule set for blindfolded speedruns is the same as visual speedruns, with the addition of the player must be visibly devoid of sight during the gameplay, and no external help or tools can be used. Tools such as a metronome. More on this later. Now let's talk about some common blindfolded techniques that are relevant to this run. Normalization refers to a fixed way to get the same action with the same results. There are two types of normalization. Normalized movement, a movement option that always moves you the same distance. An example would be crouch jumping. And normalized positions, which is using the landscape to position yourself in the same spot every time. Sound/music cues is reacting to any type of in-game audio with an action. This of course can be used in a variety of different ways from game to game. Beat counting is mapping and timing a chain of inputs to any steady beat the game provides, most likely the background music, basically turning it into a rhythm game. For example, hold right on beat 1, jump on 5, jump on 7, and so on. And of course, we can divide each beat in half, thirds, and quarters for more precise timing. This is an extremely powerful tool, however, it does require a lot more memorization, practice, and can be more punishing if you mess up, so it's important to have backups as well. Pseudo beat counting is the same as beat counting, but instead of using a beat that is playing, you use your internal metronome to maintain a beat that is no longer playing, or one that you're very familiar with. This is of course less precise, but sometimes necessary or useful when there is a lack of music. This is an example of why external tools such as metronomes are usually not allowed. A metronome at the perfect BPM is just too much external help. Echolocation is using sound and space to judge the location of objects. I personally include things like using surround sound and spatial audio in this technique, as well as using thrown or moving objects and their sounds to determine their location. For example, throwing ice to determine where walls or ledges are. I don't actually use this example in the run, but I thought it was a really good idea by Ice Steel Plants that is worth sharing. Memorization is of course necessary for all blindfolded techniques because you need to remember all of your strats in order to do them in a run. Most non-blindfolded gamers tend to say, "Oh, I could never memorize how to beat an entire game blindfolded." However, I promise memorization is not as bad as you think. With the amount of practice involved in strategizing, memorization will come super quick. Especially when you are visualizing what's happening in the game as you do it, it becomes easy to remember what comes next. And as long as you notate all of your strats, even if you do forget, you can always relearn them. Now, I am far from the first person to take on Blindfolded NSMBW. There are many videos out there of people completing levels blindfolded, and even a small Discord server dedicated to it. I was actually surprised that a full blindfolded run hadn't been done yet, considering how well known the game is. So what progress had already been made at the time of me getting into it? Since there was yet to be a world's first blindfolded run, the focus was of course any %, the shortest path from beginning to beating Bowser. So what is required to beat the game? In World 1, we beat the first level, the second level, take the secret exit in the third level, then we take the cannon to World 5. In World 5, there is Level 1, the Piranha Plant battle, a choice between levels 2 and 3. Level 2 is the easier choice for blindfolded. The tower, Level 4, and the secret exit of the ghost house, which allows us to use the cannon straight to World 8. In World 8, there is Level 1, the secret exit of Level 2, taking us to Level 7, and then finally the airship and Bowser's castle. Not including the 2 cannons, there are a total of 14 levels we need to learn. However, it was sort of agreed upon that the World 1 power-up panel's Mushroom House is extremely worth it for a blindfolded run, so make that 15. And actually, there was talk about how useful the star item is for some segments, but in order to get to the star house, Level 1-3 needs to be beaten using the normal exit, which means you have to beat that level twice. So make that 16 levels. Turns out, members of the Blindfolded NSMBW Discord server had already solved 15 out of 16 of these levels over 2 years prior. Unfortunately, people have busy lives, so the server was mostly dormant until I joined. The only level that didn't have a confirmed proof of concept was Bowser's Castle. 8-1 was also mentioned to be extremely difficult. I wonder why. And another level that seems pretty tricky for blindfolded was 5-4. This is due to the raft, which we have very limited normalization options on, and falling off of also results in an insta-death. And to top that, there's also enemies that rain from above. I decided I would work on these 3 levels first before pursuing the whole project, but for the sake of this video, I will cover the levels in the order they appear in the run. But first, let's talk about routing. You may be thinking, well, what is there to route? Seems pretty straightforward. Yes, but there are a few things to consider, such as item usage. The Mushroom House in World 1, although there are 6 different patterns, there are only 2 unique outcomes. 4 out of 6 outcomes results in 0 stars, 2 propellers, 2 fire flowers, 2 ice flowers, and 1 mushroom. The other 2 results in 1 star, 1 propeller, 2 fire flowers, 2 ice flowers, and 1 mushroom. Considering how one of the stars there is only a 1 in 3 chance of getting, and the other requires us to beat 1-3 twice, I made the decision to try my very best to avoid using stars in my strats, not including the stars that appear in the levels themselves. That not only saves time within the run from not playing 1-3 twice, but also avoids having to reset every 2 out of 3 runs for not getting a star, which will save time in the general speedrun grinding process going forward. The game also allows us to save at the beginning of World 5, after 5 Tower, at the beginning of World 8, and after 8 Airship. So we have unlimited attempts with the items that we have, simply by exiting and reloading the current save. And how convenient that we have saves right before 3 of the most tricky levels of the run, 5-4, 8-1, and Bowser's Castle. If you are wondering about quick saves, they are practically useless because they are only temporary saves for the purpose of leaving the game and returning from where you left off. Not only is there the benefit of saves, but we can also return to level 1-1 at any point and play through it again to get another propeller. The only catch is that the World 5 map has vines that move and block paths, so doing this mid-World 5 could risk losing even more time by being forced to play and enter certain levels. In addition, due to the difficulty of the Bowser fight and the value of propellers throughout the run, I decided that the propellers stored in the inventory are more worth saving for the Bowser fight. This way you get multiple attempts in quicker succession, starting from the checkpoint in Bowser's Castle, before having to reset from the save. At least until Bowser becomes more consistent, this method will save the most time. Finally, let's break down each level. Level 1-1, I start off with a beat count. Like I said, beat counting is extremely powerful and I will be using it very frequently. Especially as someone with plenty of musical background, rhythm is a strength. However, beat counting does require more memorization and practice. If you make any mistake, whether it's bad timing, a wrong input, it could jeopardize the rest of the beat count, so it's important to have backups. For the sake of consistency and completing the first blindfolded run, if there is an easier and less risky strat, then I will most likely choose that rather than a beat count. After all, I could always switch to harder and quicker strats in the future. Upon reaching the checkpoint, there is a very clear audio cue for me to slide down the hill, and if I continue to hold down, Mario will actually slow down and stop in the same place every time, an example of normalized movement. This is a great setup for knowing where I am in relation to the item box. This propeller, just like in a visual speedrun, is going to get us through all of World 1 and World 5. Next, I use the absence of Mario's footsteps when he drops down as an audio cue to jump. And then up here, I do another normalized slide. From here, I do a crouch jump spin to travel roughly the same distance, making sure to hold the jump button so that I bounce off of the Koopa here, listen for the audio cue of Mario landing, and finally do a jump and hold to clear the rest of the enemies. I'm not going to be this detailed for every level in the game, but I will be covering the most interesting sections of each level. If you want to look closer at my notes, they will be provided in the video description. In 1-2, upon exiting the tube, I use a short beat count, and after spinning, this wall normalizes Mario's horizontal position so that as I hold right and keep shaking, I should end up picking up the POW block. After some more normalized movement and audio cues, I come across this underpass, which has a star block in it. After sliding under these blocks, a simple ground pound will always take out the Goomba and slide Mario underneath the star block. After grabbing the star, I just use the audio cues of hitting enemies to roughly time my jumps. And that's about it for 1-2. The Mushroom House is definitely a unique part of the run. Like I mentioned, there are 6 possible patterns, and we need to first determine which of the 6 it is. I decided the easiest way to figure out the pattern would be to sweep the top row, by listening to whether I flipped a bad panel, a good panel, or a good panel that is a match. You can easily determine which of the 6 you have within the first 4 panels. For example, if the first panel is bad, it narrows it down to 2. Then, if the 4th panel is a match, we know which one it is. However, you do have to memorize which pattern is which, all of the rest of the panels, so that you can get every item out of it, and also which pattern gives you which set of items. That's a lot of memorization. To make this easier, I would memorize the bare minimum of each pattern that I need to know. As long as I dodge one Bowser panel and one Bowser Jr. panel, I'm free to sweep the rest of the board. For example, I flip the first 4 panels, I don't get any bad panels or matches, I know this pattern has one of each bad panel in the top right too, so I just sweep the rest of the board. For both of these patterns, I can even use the same solution, skip panel 5, sweep the bottom row, and then sweep the middle row starting from the left. And so on. Anything to make memorization easier. 1-3 was a breeze since I was able to entirely utilize audio cues and normalization to get through the whole level. Super easy and super consistent. The most notable techniques were listening to Mario's footsteps to hit walls or drop off ledges, to time jumps, spins, and slides. World 5 is where things start to get more interesting. 5-1 starts with some normalized movement, utilizing the coin audio to know when to drill down, then a short beat count to find this slope. Off to the screen to the right here, there is an item roulette block. For those who don't know, these blocks are not random. As long as your timing is consistent in relation to the point of loading the block, then you will always get the same item. Visual speedrunners do this all the time to consistently get a star, so that's what I'm going to do. But in order for it to be consistent, I needed a way to normalize my position in this area before loading the block in. There isn't any walls around, but there is this slope. By tapping left and crouching, I can use the sliding audio to find the point where the ground meets the slope. And from there, I can do normalized movement to set up for a beat count and consistently get the star. Upon grabbing the star, I do another beat count, literally just spin through the vine section, and then we come across the only swimming section in the entire run. The most reasonable and safest option is to swim underneath the piranha plants. However, there's also the risk of drowning. I found that Mario actually sinks a lot slower than normal if you hold the jump button between swimming. so that is going to give a lot more leeway. Additionally, when Mario is approaching the death zone underwater, the audio of him swimming actually starts to dim. So I figured I could use that as an audio cue to swim if needed, but I ended up just using a simple beat count once I land in the water. Once I reach this wall and spin up, I need to renormalize, so I use the audio of hitting the ceiling or lack thereof to determine where I am. Then I spin up against the overhang to get an exact horizontal position, and use normalized movement and beat counts to finish the level. The Piranha Plant battle is pretty simple, just a mix of a beat count and using the audio cues of these bubbles. Or maybe I just wasn't holding the run button like I should have. 5-2 is again mostly a mix of audio cues, normalization, and beat counts. After spinning under these bats, I go neutral and land, and then fly up just to be safe to let the bats pass. Then I continue past the checkpoint to trigger this bat, normalize to the left and evade it, before I do a beat count, and then bounce off the wiggler to enter the third star coin area. After exiting the tube, I immediately do another beat count, and then just spin to the end. 5 Tower at first glance seems really difficult for Blindfolded due to the completely silent spiky walls that move side to side. There are 4 segments of these walls and they are all on a global cycle upon entering the level. So it would be really hard to navigate, especially with so few spots to normalize. The simplest way to approach this is with a well-crafted beat count. I figured this would be a good level to take a closer look at how we can use crouch jumping in Blindfolded strats. There are 4 main options that we have: a basic crouch jump, a crouch jump while holding the run button, a crouch spin, and a crouch spin while holding the run. The last 2, although they travel the same distance in the air, when Mario lands, he will actually slide a shorter distance if the run button is being held. This is extremely helpful in this level, as you will see later. The majority of this strat is a copy-paste of Kill a Dragon strat. The beat count is very well crafted, making use of landing on these moving blocks, which avoids the walls for us. You can also see how in this first segment, most of the movements are vertical movement rather than horizontal. Again, the moving blocks does the horizontal movement for us, which is very helpful for keeping this consistent. After reaching the checkpoint, there's a quick normalized setup between beat counts, and it's important to be quick, otherwise the cycle could be missed and you would have to know a backup cycle. But there's more than enough time, so it's not really a problem. Here is a good example of using the crouch spin with the run button held. It happens to be the perfect movement distance. Without the run button, Mario would have hit the spikes. Here's where I decided to branch off of Kill a Dragon strat. Rather than jumping all the way up to normalize against the wall, I do a crouch jump, wall jump, for quicker normalization to catch a faster cycle. And when I start the next beat count, this wall slows my horizontal movement enough to stop me just before the spikes. This is the 5 tower strategy that I used for a while, but eventually as I brought the record lower and lower, I looked into ways to save more cycles. I was able to make a pro strat which is 3 cycles faster, this one is not run viable, and I also made an intermediate that is pretty consistent, has a lot less downtime, and is 1 to 2 cycles faster. The tricky part for the beginning was finding a way to make it faster while still avoiding horizontal inputs, and also avoiding the enemies. The very first spin I had to delay by a beat, so that this dry bones loads in slightly later and isn't in the way for the next spin. But I mean, just look at how well this all lines up. The next section is also very fast paced. There's a quick normalized setup, more beat counting, a tap to the right which isn't really normalized but not that much of a problem, and then some quick semi-normalized movement before spinning up to this wall again to re-normalize, and finishing it off with the same strat as before. The time to make this last beat count at the end is very tight, so if I'm too slow I also have a backup cycle which is still faster than the old strat. Iggy is fairly easy. As long as he is hit in the same spot and travels in the same direction, he will always exit his shell at the same location. To start, I immediately crouch spin to the right and music cue the first hit, making sure Iggy goes to the right, and then just use normalized movement and audio cues to time the last 2 hits. 5-4 has 2 main approaches. We can either ride the raft and deal with falling enemies, many inconsistencies, and few normalization options, or we can use the propeller that we still have to do what speedrunners do and skip the raft. It may look complicated and difficult for Blindfolded, but it's probably easier to learn the beat count than it is to ride the raft. especially since I will be doing a much easier raft skip than the pros. And, like I said, there is a save right before this level, so we have unlimited attempts. Riding the raft blindfolded is also possible, as demonstrated by Killadragon, but I personally haven't looked into that method yet. The beat count I came up with has worked great for me, and I even have normalization built into it to make the segments of it more consistent. This block is a little interesting because if I land too far on the right side, then I will fall off when I attempt the next jump. So it's important to land in the middle or on the left side. Usually in a scenario like this, there is no way to determine your exact position on the block, so you have to just rely on precise timing. However, there is a big piranha plant that spawns on the invisible platform in the top right, and usually you can hear it, but if you land too far left on the block, then you won't hear it spawn in. Therefore, if I don't hear it, then my position is good enough. But if I do hear it, then that means I'm either in the middle or on the right. And in both cases, I can tap left just to be safe. The position doesn't have to be perfect, since when doing the next jump, if I hear Mario doesn't fully make it up on the platform, then I can quickly do 2 wall jumps to save it. After landing, I quickly fly up into the corner to normalize and find the tube, and then finish the level. The ghost house is a walk in the park compared to the past few levels. The main gimmick for this level is that it's dark, and well, that's a real problem, isn't it? Anyway, I just beat count the first room, beat count the second room since there are cycles, and then beat count the end to avoid the booze. But if I take damage here, it's not that big of a deal, since in 8-1 we don't need the propeller anymore. And finally, it's time for World 8. And World 8 is a beast. 8-1 is certainly one of the more difficult levels in this run, and this is due to RNG, or random number generator. In this level, it's in the form of volcano debris. Although the rocks fall in waves about every 16 seconds, the patterns they fall in are randomized. Not only are there rocks falling, but there are lava geysers and enemies to evade as well, and we also have to move quickly due to the ash cloud that is chasing us. So how do we get around this? You guessed it, a beat count. Seriously, beat counting is a powerful tool. Obviously a beat count isn't going to solve all of the RNG problems. We do have to get a little lucky, and sometimes just accepting that we have to get lucky is a reasonable blindfolded strategy. Having a strategy that works some of the time and trying it over and over until it succeeds can be smart. And remember, we get to save right before this level, so unlimited attempts. That was my original plan, but that doesn't mean we can't minimize the amount of luck required. There are 4 main techniques for minimizing luck we can do in this level. First, the faster we move through the level, the less RNG we have to deal with. I'm using a beat count, so this is no problem. We're going to be moving fast. Part of the problem with RNG and beat counts is that taking damage in this game causes the screen to freeze for a split second, which desyncs the music and gameplay from what we are used to. So unexpectedly taking damage during a beat count likely ruins the rest of that beat count. This leads to technique number 2, damage boosting. If I intentionally take damage at the same spot every time, then it becomes part of the beat count. It also gives a brief period of invincibility after taking damage, which makes the falling rocks not matter in those moments. For the first half of the level, I will be prioritizing the mushroom items in my inventory since my strat only requires 1 damage boost. At the checkpoint, I will purposefully die, and then use my flower items to get through the second half, which does require 2 damage boosts. If I run out of those items, I will just reload the save and try again. The third way we can minimize luck is by manipulating when the rocks fall during the level. Like I mentioned before, the volcano erupts periodically about every 16 seconds, which is followed by a group of rocks falling. By stalling and then going, we can manipulate if the rocks are falling or not by the time we reach a certain section of the level. You will see that here in the second half. The fourth technique is to over-prepare with backups for every scenario. I haven't done much with this technique, but it is an option. By doing a consistent beat count from the beginning of the level, there are only a few rock spawns that we have to worry about, and the timing of getting hit by those rocks is consistent too. So someone could do a beat count, and depending on the audio cues they hear, they could react and switch to a backup beat count. This will of course require more practice. The only problem with this method, at least for this level, is the fact that you would need to have an extra damage boost to be successful with a backup. So I need more than just a mushroom for the first half. If I still have the propeller from the previous level, then I get one opportunity to attempt to back up. There is also a secret 5th technique to minimize luck. By using a star at the beginning of the level, you can completely get rid of luck factor for as long as the star lasts. However, they don't last very long, so it'll only get you so far. I also made the decision to not rely on stars, but they could be useful. My finished strat for 8-1 starts with a beat count. If I was to use backup beat counts, this is the section that I would implement the most. Here I damage boost early with the Buzzy Beetle and use the invincibility period to make it through the lava geyser. Then I use some audio cues and normalization to get to the checkpoint where I die and use a flower. On re-entry, I do another beat count, and the first wave of rocks are always too slow and doesn't matter. Then I re-normalize underneath this overhang, and then stall a bit so that the next wave of rocks aligns with the next damage boost section. Then after some more beat counting, I damage boost through all of these lava geysers, and right here I have to wait for this geyser to fall to progress safely. If I hadn't stalled earlier, the rocks would be falling right now, which would be a huge problem. After finishing the rest of the beat count, I normalize against the wall and do some semi-normalized movement, a full wall jump while going neutral on the D-pad, which allows Mario to slow himself down and stop right underneath the pipe. The last section is just some normalized movement and a beat count. But I'm not yet done talking about 8-1, because very recently I investigated a deathless strategy for this level, and this is what I came up with. It's not the most reliable yet, but it doesn't hurt to attempt it in runs if I have the opportunity. The beginning is the same, but I slow down before the checkpoint and tap right until I hear it. This semi-normalizes me. Then I start a beat count once the rocks start spawning, and in order for this to work, I need to get the flower out of this item block. So before landing, I crouch and hold left so Mario slows down quicker. Then jump, move left, and repeat until I hear the item come out. Then move again to the left, jump up to the right to get the item, and jump again right after. It's not super normalized, but it doesn't need to be. It just needs to be quick so I can make it to this power block before the rocks. Then I listen for the rocks to stop spawning, which is when I start the next beat count, and the rest is the same as my other strat. This strategy is the first step towards removing the item house from the run and matching the visual any percent. The other necessary pieces are a propellerless 8-2 and 8-7. If all three of these can be consistent, then that route could save lots of time over the current route. After 8-1, to be safe, I would usually save the propellers in my inventory for the Bowser fight, and at this point go back to 1-1 for another propeller. However, the current world record does not do this and is optimized enough that breaking it would require the use of the inventory propellers. 8-2 starts off with more RNG rocks again, but it's short and simple enough to just react to the spatial audio to avoid them. The rolling hills in this level make blindfolded navigation a little more tricky, so my strategy utilizes the propeller to avoid them as much as possible. After exiting the tube, I wait for the Goomba audio cue to spin and land on these blocks. There are some opportunities to semi-normalize on the rolling hills, such as right here where I land holding down to continuously slide into the wall. Then some audio cues and spinning to get me here, where I tap to find the checkpoint and semi-normalize my position. After jumping to the next hill, I continuously run until I hear the footsteps change at the top of the hill. Then by releasing the run button, Mario's speed will almost match the speed of the hill and semi-normalize at the top of the hill for the next beat count. It's important that this next section is as normalized as it can be, since I need a way to consistently navigate to the star block, but most of the ground is moving, which makes that difficult. After the beat count, I do some semi-normalized movement to hopefully land on the block, tap right just to be safe, then I use audio cues to get the star and navigate to the secret pipe. The rest of the level is pretty simple, just hold right and shake continuously. 8-7 is the iconic Bone Coaster level. The majority of my strat for this level is again inspired by Kill a Dragon. I just made little tweaks to make it more consistent for me. I start with normalized movement, allowing Mario to stop himself. Since we're dealing with a moving platform, being consistent with timing is going to be crucial for evading the lava geysers, so I will be beat counting each coaster and normalizing in between. Unfortunately, there will always be little inconsistencies when riding the coasters, but with a well-crafted beat count, I won't have to be perfect since there's enough leeway. The longer you're on the coaster, or the more movements you do on the coaster, the more consistency will be lost. As a general rule, do as few movements as possible and dismount the coaster as soon as possible using the propeller. For the second coaster, I again go neutral on the D-pad to let these blocks normalize Mario's position, then use the propeller extremely early to skip a few jumps and catch the coaster at the bottom. The rest of this beat count isn't too interesting. The third coaster is easy, little to dodge, and very consistent, so let's just move on. The fourth segment has 2 coasters. Again, minimizing the amount of movements I have to do, I will be spinning up to the second coaster early to avoid some geysers, and then mostly use the propeller to finish the level. The airship is a little easier than the past few levels, and has much lower risk since this level actually has propellers available in it. This means if I lose the propeller, then I can do a backup to get one back, or if I die, I can even use my remaining mushrooms and flowers in my inventory to make getting one back easier in the level. In the first section of the airship, in order to evade all the cannonballs, a beat count makes sense for the first half of the level. Especially for the rotating tube cannon thing, beat counting makes catching the cycle super simple. The underside of the ship is a short beat count with a clever little wall jump ground pound in this corner to land directly on this screw. The cool thing about spinning the screws is that they also normalize Mario's position. Then another short beat count here, and a spin in this corner to normalize and enter the tube. From here, I do a normalized spin, and during it, I throw in an extra spin, which makes Mario travel slightly further, which is enough to spawn in the Mecha Koopa over here. This is so that by the time I spin the screw and jump over this platform, the Mecha Koopa will be out of the way already. The remainder of the level is all just normalized movement, audio cues, and short beat counts. The Bowser Jr. battle is one of the easiest parts of the entire run. A music cue to time the first ground pound, then just walk up against a wall and use audio cues. Jump and spin when he shoots a fireball, drill down when it hits the wall, and repeat. As soon as you hear a bomb fall out, drill down. Do this twice, and that's it. After saving, it's finally time for Bowser's Castle. Funnily enough, this has one of the easiest level portions, but then it's followed by one of the hardest parts of the run, which is very fitting as it is the final boss. The first portion of the level is just one long beat count that utilizes the propeller for easy evasion and consistency. The one notable thing is that I don't consistently hit this invisible block. Since the block doesn't stop Mario going up, it takes Mario longer to reach the ground, making him slightly too slow to run under this fire bar. To get around this, if I hear that I don't hit the block, I make a small addition to the beat count in order to slide under the fire bar, and then continue as normal. This is a very simple but great example of using an audio cue and a backup beat count. The rest of the beat count isn't very interesting. After entering this tube, I simply wait to collect these 5 coins, then jump, spin, land, and repeat 5 more times. On the last spin, I tap right and drill on count 3 to enter the tube. Now we get to the interesting stuff. Before Bowser, there is this long corridor, with random fireball patterns in groups of 5. This is not good. We can't afford to lose the propeller since it plays a huge role in the boss fight, so we need to clear this corridor without taking damage. This happens to be one of the other parts where others considered using a star, and that is a great solution that can 100% consistently make it through without taking damage. But like I said, stars are just too much of a hassle to get 1, maybe 2 attempts per save reload with the addition of playing 1-3 twice. So I needed a way to do it damageless and without stars. There's a small wall right here that we can run to and wait behind, as well as 2 other holes that we can hide in. After the first set of fireballs, which is free to dodge, there are 2 more to evade. The obvious move is to run to the wall, let them pass, run to the next hole, let them pass, and repeat for the third set. The way I do this is by counting the pulse that the fireballs spawn in at, and then pseudo beat count that pulse to know when to go. After that, I slide as I hear the 4th fireball in the next set spawn in. This actually works pretty well, however, there is still the slightest bit of RNG. Specifically, when running for the first drop down, if I'm unlucky and get the first fireball on the bottom row, then there's no chance I'll make it in time. What I need is just a little bit of a head start. That way, I'll make it no matter what. Lucky for us, we have a wall that allows us to hear when the bottom row of fireballs hit it. At first, I thought I could use my pseudo beat counting in combination with these audio cues to determine which pattern I get, but there are way too many patterns to determine that. But at the very least, I can determine where the bottom row of fireballs are in the pattern. For example, while I pseudo beat count, if the first fireball is on the bottom, it will always hit on count 7. The second will always hit on count 9, the third on count 11, fourth on count 13, and 5th on count 15. Then I realized all that I need to know is whether the last fireball is on the bottom row or not. If I know that the last fireball just hit the wall, then it's 100% safe to go early. So all I have to do is listen for a fireball to hit on count 15. If a fireball does not hit, then it's too risky since there is a chance that the fireball is in the middle row instead. But if that happens, all I have to do is run back to the start and try again. This means we can just repeat this process until we get the good RNG, making this a 100% consistent strat. There are also a few extra tricks that can help. I found that there is always at least one fireball in the bottom row. So if a fireball doesn't hit on counts 7, 9, 11, or 13, then there is guaranteed to be one on count 15. This makes the reaction time much easier. In addition, there are never two fireballs back to back in the same row. So if a fireball hits on count 13, there is guaranteed to not be one on count 15. In this case, just run back to the wall immediately to save time. And with that, it's finally time for Bowser. First step, hold down right, shake, and that's it. Light work, end of the run, is what I would say if we weren't about to witness the greatest Peach cosplay there ever was. Anyway, Bowser Phase 2. The first section involves manipulating and evading Bowser's fireballs to destroy walls in order to progress. Then we get to the moving platform section, which we have to navigate while evading Bowser, and finally hit this button to finish the run. To start, I see no reasonable solution to the moving platforms other than a beat count, so I need a way to normalize before loading the platforms in order to start the beat count and catch the same cycle. All I have to do is find my way to this corner, do the beat count, and win. Easy. Wrong. Now the beat count was actually pretty easy. I've spent some time perfecting it so that it's super consistent and decently easy with practice. The fireball section is not easy. For that section, we have a clear goal though. Get to this corner with either the propeller or as Big Mario. Luckily, there is a propeller in the box following this section, which I have a backup beat count for if we need to grab it. At first I figured a beat count would work for the fireball section as well, but the precision required for that to be consistent is not going to happen. So I needed to rely a lot more on audio cues. Thankfully, the propeller makes it a lot easier to manipulate fireballs and avoid taking damage without having to be stupid precise. To start, I use a pretty simple beat count at the beginning of the fight to break through the first few walls. Then by jumping and spinning through the gap and normalizing against the next wall, I've increased the distance between Mario and Bowser enough that Bowser will consistently jump and shoot a few fireballs. From here, I time my next jump spin with Bowser landing, wait for the first fireball to hit, then proceed to the top box. Then I fly up into this corner before every fireball gets shot to make sure one of them hits this wall at the top rather than hitting Mario. And if Bowser decides to swing one of his arms instead, that actually makes it easier to time the next jump with the fireball. Everything to this point works really well and is easy to get consistent, but this next section is where things get tricky. It's worth noting that spatial audio is extremely useful in this section, as you can roughly determine the location of fireballs and where they hit using the surround sound. However, what we can't figure out is exactly how the walls break and what the layout looks like. A frequently changing environment, as you can imagine, is not ideal for Blindfolded. Anyway, after hearing this wall get destroyed, I jump through and spin, and then I normalize against this wall. The issue here is, remember that the goal is to normalize in this corner and then start the beat count. But in order to normalize in the corner needs to still be there. It makes the most sense to take the upper path again in order to avoid Bowser destroying those walls. In order to destroy any of this wall, Bowser first needs to destroy more of this wall so that his fireballs can reach this wall. And even after this gets destroyed, we have to get up there, hope that we can either land on the Goomba, or that the Goomba walks out or gets hit by a fireball, all while avoiding getting hit by fireballs yourself and destroying the last wall. I've tried many different strategies to get something that works consistently, but there is just too much variation. At the end of the day, you just have to be good. You have to understand Bowser's behavior, anticipate his next move, time your jumps. You have to be actively listening to the audio and paying attention to how many fireballs he shoots and where they are on the screen and where they hit on the walls. And based on the things that are happening, you have to decide what the next best move is. It sounds silly, but you really just have to use your imagination during this section. If you are imagining how the layout most likely looks, it can be enough information with the help of the propeller to navigate it. Now, as much as I hate this strategy, it actually works really well for what it is. It requires a lot of practice, but it works well enough to be viable in a full speedrun. I can usually get it within 3 to 8 tries, and this is the same strat that I used in the world's first blindfolded run of this game. I still believe there's got to be some improvements that can be made to this strat, and if any of you have any ideas, feel free to help out. However, what if I told you that there just so happens to be a glitch that completely skips the one section of the entire speedrun that I despise? Nothing more, nothing less. And it only skips the fireball portion of Bowser Phase 2. I am of course talking about Above the Castle. What is Above the Castle, or better referred to as ATC? ATC involves precisely timing a spin at the beginning of the Bowser fight so that a fireball perfectly destroys this wall, leaving a 1 block tall gap that Mario can crouch jump into, and by releasing crouch for a split second while spamming jump, Mario will get pushed above the ceiling, where we can simply run across the entire section before the camera pushes him back down at the beginning of the platform section. I mean, is this not a miracle that this even exists? But is it viable for blindfolded? Well, it's in this video, so I'm sure you can guess where this is going. To start, getting the 1 block gap requires precise timing, but that is of course nothing a beat count can't solve. Then I normalize up here and try crouch jumping into the gap. If I don't hear Mario slide into the gap within a few attempts, then I most likely did not get the 1 block gap. In this case, I can attempt to do the old strat as a backup. But let's say I succeed. I spam jump to get Mario wedged in there as far as he can before releasing crouch for a split second to clip up. And as I pass through, I'm going to start shaking the remote so that as soon as the game lets me, Mario will spin and then slide when I land. This is very important semi-normalization because I have to start the beat count for the platform section all the way over here. Due to where Mario gets pushed down, we are unable to use the usual corner to normalize. So rather, I made a beat count that starts there, normalizes against the propeller block, and then continues with my original beat count. Like I said, I spent time perfecting this beat count to make it as consistent as I can. There are many small adjustments for input timings that go a long way, and many moments where Mario automatically renormalizes throughout it. And with that said, let's take a moment to watch the Bowser battle in my current world record blindfolded run. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Okay, lock in. 7, 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, 1 and 2, 3 and 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 1, 2 and 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 1 and 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 2, 3, 4, and GG's, dude. Sub 40! Sub 39 even, dude! And there it is, new Super Mario Bros. Wii beaten blindfolded. Over the past few months, I've gotten more and more consistent at all of the levels, finding more and more improvements on from my world's first time of 1 hour and 31 minutes, all the way down to 38:28. And there is still more to go, so be sure to tune into my live streams. Huge thank you to everyone involved in Blindfolded NSMBW. Without your previous work, this project would have taken a lot longer. I hope more people eventually start running this category. It's honestly an amazing game for Blindfolded, and there's a lot more to do. And who knows, maybe Blindfolded Any % No World 5 will eventually happen. Again, be sure to leave a comment letting me know what you liked about this challenge. And again, thank you all so much for watching.